Good evening, Zimbabwe. This is going to be my last live stream before the elections in 2 days' time. But before we get going, I just want to wait and have a few more people join us. So I will not be, I'll give it a couple of minutes, 5 minutes or thereabouts, to see that we've got a significant number of people who've joined. I think I need to adjust something here. So whilst we're waiting for people to join, let's just play around with the technology a bit. Excuse me whilst we do this, but it should be fine in a bit. Welcome. So as I was explaining, we'll wait until we've got a few more people. So let's give us a couple of minutes. Give it a couple of minutes and wait for a significant number of people to join so we don't leave them behind. So I hope that those of you who have joined do not mind. I can see Grace in London, Tendi, I think. I'm not sure where you are joining us from. Emmanuel, Zingira, Wongi Wendondo. So just bear with me and let's get a few more people to join us. Tawana Nyasha, welcome. Whilst we're waiting, can you just indicate that you can hear me, please? How are you going to indicate? Put your like so that I can communicate with me so I can see you can actually, well done, Teacher Warner. So you can hear me. That's good. And you can see me okay? Well done. Thank you. Hi, Grace. So let us start. I mean, I know that some people will join as we go along. Let me tell you how I want to structure tonight. I would like to make some introductory remarks for about 10 minutes or thereabouts, roughly. Then I want us to have a conversation where I answer your questions for about what, 40, maybe about 40 minutes thereabouts. And then again, another 10 minutes at the end for me to wrap up on the sort of giving our last views on how we believe as APA that we should approach these elections. So to start off with then, Monday is just around the corner. And as we in APA have always said, it is time. It is time indeed. It is time for what though? There are a lot of people. In fact, I had a very close friend call me this morning. And this close friend said to me, you know, I look at the history of the sub-region and I look at Malawi, I look at countries like Zambia. And when the first change happened, or after the first change happened, it became much easier post that for those countries, the citizens and the electorates of those countries to continuously change their presidents. Then I asked this friend of mine whether, in her view, these countries, all the time from the point when the first change happened, whether she believed they'd achieved qualitative change since. And she had to admit that actually when you look at it, there is no qualitative change that has happened. Yes, they've been spinning their wheels, they've been able to take presidents out and so on and so on. And the point I was trying to make to this friend of mine was that we cannot afford anymore to say change for change's sake is good. We have learned a lesson. We changed Ian Smith, and at that point in time, change for change's sake was good for us. That's what we argued. We've had 38 years to learn that actually we are smart enough to do both change, but let that change be qualitative change. And so for me, it's one of the things as we approach these elections, we really need to think through incredibly carefully. My humble opinion is that we as a people cannot afford another 5 years of either the same kind of misgovernance of our country or even worse. I put it that way, and this is not going to sit very comfortably with us, but I think if you want to be really objective, this is true. In 1980, we got rid of UDI, stroke colonialism. The change we got, actually, when you look in aggregate in terms of what has happened to our country, I'm one of the people who would argue that our country, no matter how hates is run much better under Ian Smith than it's been run since. Now, do I want a repeat of this? My opinion is no, I don't. I don't, because it's not necessary, it's avoidable. We can do change and also make it qualitative change. We have learned something. We know where we are. We know where our country is, and we know what we need to do. So let us not shortchange ourselves and say any change is good enough, and we wake up tomorrow to find that we've got another ZANU just in a different name, or even worse than ZANU. When in fact, we have got an opportunity to get qualitative change and get our country on a recovery path. Why would we choose something other than that? So one of the issues is change just for its own sake is not good enough. We've got, I think, options which allow us to get both change and let that change be qualitative change. So that's the first point. Second point I want us to discuss, if you will, and also think about as we approach these elections, is that in most countries, not just Zimbabwe, the people who make the most noise are actually a minority. Democracy, if there is anything that is not working for democracy, in countries where eligible voters choose not to turn up and vote, is that we call it democracy, but actually it's rulership by the minority. They are very vociferous, they talk a lot, they go marching, they go to rallies and so on. And a lot of us tend to be satisfied with being a silent majority. I think that if we want our country to turn around, we have to take personal responsibility and not continue to be a silent majority. Let everybody who registered go through a process of thinking through what our country needs, and go and absolutely make your voice heard through exercising your vote. Don't stay at home. Don't be impatient. Even if those queues are long, go and get food in relays if you must, but we must not be satisfied to be a silent majority. And Zimbabweans in particular are very good at this. Why do I say this? We've gotten into the habit of saying we make a plan. We make a plan to look after our families and let the rest look after itself. So a lot of the people in this country at the moment who know exactly what ought to be done choose to build their own prisons, if I may call it that. So they buy a house or build a house. They put a wall around it to stop people coming to steal from them. They drill a borehole in order to get water. That's why I'm calling it a prison. We think we are okay, but we can build a much nicer country where we can live peacefully and prosperously provided we do not stay as a silent majority. So that's my second point. My third point is that when you look at, again, Zimbabwe and the state of this country, as I have campaigned, everywhere I've gone, people have been incredibly clear about what needs to be done. Most people will simplify it to one thing and one thing only. And what that thing is we want jobs for our people, especially our children. We trained them. They went to school. They passed exams, but they are hanging their certificates on the wall. And they are selling airtime in spite of getting degrees, first-class honors degrees and the like. And parents out there are puzzled about what has happened. They can't really understand. So I think all of us can agree. We kind of reasonably understand what the job that needs to be done is. I want to just expand it a little beyond what the ordinary person would articulate. After all, I think that's the role of leadership. So I think that we need to manage an economy prudently. I also think, though, we need to build a united country. In other words, we need unity in our nation. We need a peaceful country. We need a country that can be respected. And some of the things involved in this are that we need to get rid of corruption. We need to get rid of nepotism, cronyism, and patronage. We need a leadership that will lead by example in showing our people what constitutionalism means. Some of you have heard me say, I see the time, I'm going to wind up in a minute. You've heard me say, a lot of us as parties should not have written a manifesto. We should have put out just one sentence. We shall comply with the provisions of the Constitution, because all of the things we need to do are covered, including inclusivity, devolution. It's all there, looking after the youth, women, and the disabled in our society, prudent management of the economy, transparency, no corrupt. It's all in the Constitution, but we've never done it. So we really need to think long and hard about any evidence that the people who are contesting in their ordinary daily lives do not comply with these requirements. We should not kid ourselves. If you want somebody else who is articulated it much better than I can, go and listen to Michelle Obama's video when she was talking about Trump and what people should expect. What you see during the campaign and in the way somebody leads their life before they are elected, you're going to get that and more once you put them in office. So let's not kid ourselves and think that we can allow somebody who cuts corners, somebody who is happy to lie, somebody who is happy to use hyperbole, things which don't make sense, and hoodwink the population into electing them. And you think once they're elected, they're going to change. They are not going to change. So on that note, let me say, it is time for all of us to do the right thing and welcome questions. And at the end, I'll come back and just give you some closing remarks for another 10 minutes. So let me look at what is coming through and respond to that. I see there is a request for me to change the orientation of this thing. Let me try again and see. I'm not sure whether that is better. Oh, is that okay? Can you see me properly, or you are not happy with that? I can't read the questions, but I'll use another device. So that's fine. Any questions, contributions, feel free. Let's make it a conversation. I'm not seeing any questions. You want me to talk some more, or you want to tell me what you think? I'm interested to know what you think about where we are, the journey we've traveled, the prospects for a decent government for this country for a change. Somebody is saying turn it back. So, okay. Okay, sorry about that, the technology challenges, but I've turned it back. Any questions? So there's somebody who is asking a question about if I lose, if APA loses, I suppose we should put it that way. You know, at this point in time, I don't even want to entertain that question because I think that's a very problematic question for me. Everywhere I've gone, even my protagonists have admitted that the APA manifesto is one of the better ones. I just do not want to call it the best. Let's be prudent and call it one of the better ones. People have also conceded that in terms of, not just because it's me, as I've told people, there are many Zimbabweans out there who can run this country better than I can ever do. But of the people who've put their name on the ballot box, I still believe that a lot of people concede that I am the better candidate. If you put those two things together, why would we not have the confidence that Zimbabweans will turn up and vote for me and win? Why do we want to entertain any other possibility? And incidentally, some people have had the audacity to say, go and join Chamisa. Somebody even said, go and join ZANU. And I said, but firstly, I've tried it before. I've agreed to join at the invitation of President Mugabe, as you'll recall. And I am fully aware that the leader of the team makes all the difference. So you'll excuse me if my attitude is, I don't want to do it again. Once bitten, twice shy. You cannot accuse me of wanting to save my country. I've demonstrated I want to do that. But you cannot at the same time then say, go and join. If you as Zimbabweans choose somebody else with a different manifesto, a different agenda, then I think you should lie on the bed you make. You make your bed, you must lie on it. It means when you make that choice in a democratic process, that's what you want. And I don't think I've got a right to then interfere. They should run the program that you will have voted for. That's my humble opinion. So as of now, I must say the prospects of me joining somebody else's team are zero. That's my view. I'm out there, I've offered myself, and Zimbabweans are welcome to choose me. And then we can get our country to work properly. What happens if ZANU, the question has been asked by Mtulisi, and he says, what happens when ZANU refuses to hand over power? You know, to be honest with you, Mtulisi, my view is that when you look at our public sector, army included, I don't believe that we are at a point in time where ZANU will be able to get away with not handing over power. I think Zimbabweans will not allow it to happen. It's not even a question of one opposition party or other. Zimbabweans will not allow that to happen again. So I'm satisfied that when the results are announced, and if people believe in those results, if somebody attempts to then get in the way and say, we will not allow this to happen, I think this country will have a problem. So let me stop at that because I don't want to sound like I'm instigating, but I think there would be a problem. So let's just go on the basis that whatever sector of our community and institutions will support. As the president said, the voice of the people is the voice of God. It's not from me, it's from him. And he is from ZANU. I've answered the other offer from another party, so I'm not going to do that. Somebody else is going on about the same thing. Let's be rational, people. If our manifesto is the better manifesto, and if I'm the better candidate, just go and vote for me. Then this problem will not arise. The question will not arise. APA's position on land. APA's position on land is that we need a very factual starting point. So we need a land audit. And then we need to put tax on the land. The reason why we need to tax land is to make sure that land barons cannot afford to sit on unproductive land. So we'll put taxation on the land. Either it's productive or they will hand it back. Although individuals have got access to use land and even under title, land will continue to be an asset of this country, the nation as a whole. So we cannot let individuals sit on land. It is our land. And if it's not productive, we'll have to find mechanisms to disincentivize people for sitting on land and not using it. The last thing we'll have to do, in my opinion, is that we need to give people title so that they can use that title to access capital to make the land productive. And together with giving them title, we also have to support farmers technically and in terms of inputs. So extension services will have to be resuscitated and capacitated appropriately to make sure that our farmers are given a fair chance, a fair shot at being productive. Those are the essentially four things we'll do: a land audit, land tax, title, and in title, we need to be careful that we don't create a situation where there is a reconsolidation of land. I mean, people selling the land, and then we end up with a situation where a few individuals in our country own the land once again, with the majority not having access or not owning any. So we need to be careful about the structuring. And lastly, we need to, government has to come up with financial as well as technical support programs to the farmers to increase our productivity. That's the approach to land. Danisa claims that the technical issues about my iPad is refusing to twist incidentally, because, as you know, normally when you turn it, the picture is supposed to turn and so on. I turned it and the technology is not cooperating, but Danisa has concluded that the upper election strategy is as problematic as the iPad technology. Well, Danisa, that's your view. You are welcome to it. Brighton, thank you very much about your well wishes for the election. Yes, you know what? I am absolutely convinced that we can get Zimbabwe to function so well that we would all be proud of it. We know that as a people, we've got the skills that are necessary. Those skills have just not been given space to express themselves in the way our countries run. And under APA, we'll go out of our way to attract those skills back and make sure that Zimbabwe fields the best team possible for us to run a winning country. That is eminently doable, as we've demonstrated in terms of Zimbabweans being, in most cases, overrepresented in global institutions. So we want some of those skills back at home, and we'll get them. Washington says people were busy comparing numbers at rallies today. Washington, I've answered this issue of rallies before. People who are more competent at statistics than I have told us that when you look at the aggregate of the people who attend rallies in this country, together, those people do not amount to more than about 1 million people. And that 1 million people are not all registered to vote. So once you understand that we've got at most about 1 million people who go to rallies, and is what I call the vociferous minority, and out of a population of about 5.5 up to 5.8 registered voters, then you understand this is not an issue. All of us who choose to go around our business quietly, the silent majority, need to just go and express ourselves in the way that matters most. Going to a rally is not the most important thing in your life. Going to vote, however, is important, and make your vote count. And then all these numbers that are being compared will come into the correct light. By the way, let's remember that in 2013, MDC had very big rallies. I can't remember, star rallies, I think that's what they called them. And a lot of fair-minded people, independent people, say MDC lost honestly, genuinely, the elections in 2013. Unlike 2008 when they won and the election was stolen from them. So the rallies are not an indication of what is going on out there. By the way, also you need to realize that these numbers at rallies are a result of people being bussed to rallies from all sorts of parts of the country. So even they themselves are engaged in an exercise of creating smoke screens about how much support really is at those rallies. So let's not worry about these rallies. Let's just be clear about one thing. The majority of Zimbabweans do not go to rallies. The majority of Zimbabweans, incidentally, no, not just Zimbabweans, the majority of any population do not belong to a political party in any country. People who belong to political parties are a minority. But people who support a program during an election determine the outcome. So, again, if you put together ZANU members and MDC members, card-carrying members, there will be a minority compared to the people who go and vote. So let's make our numbers, the silent majority, count by going to vote and ignore the noise that the vociferous minority is making. Let's get back our country from them and run it properly. Now, there is a comment here about people in the rural areas. I have always said the reason why we in APA chose a strategy which we actually let everybody know was going to be a family and friend strategy. Now, maybe let me take a step back actually. If you agree with me that the people who go to rallies and the people who belong to political parties are a minority, and that the majority of the people tend to either be influenced by exactly this apparent support, or much more likely be influenced by word of mouth, people going and talking to their relatives, to their friends and saying, I'm going to vote for so and so because of whatever the reasons are. Then you really begin to understand that, like everything else in the commercial world, word of mouth is a very powerful way of influencing people. So those of you who believe in APA, who've understood the APA approach, and who believe in the credibility of APA, the track record that I personally have, take it as a responsibility you have to go and talk to your relatives and friends and get them to do the same. And that approach actually, given the numbers I've told you about rallies and membership of parties, is no different. The people who get first-hand exposure are a minority. The ripple effect of you taking ownership of the campaign and making it your own and talking to your friends and relatives is what makes the difference. So go out there and do it. And incidentally, this works incredibly well with the in context to the diaspora. A lot of people vex themselves about, oh, the diaspora has got no vote and the like. I say no. Actually, the diaspora has got a vote. It is an indirect vote. This country has stayed afloat economically because of the diaspora remittances, which means you've got many people back at home who depend on you. People who depend on you, rightly or wrongly, will tend to listen to what you have to say. So have you ever actually engaged with the people that you support economically to tell them what would make their lives even better than just you supporting them? To tell them how to vote. Engage with them because you already got a reach to them through the support you're giving them. So you vote, but I know it's indirect, which will rectify as upper. But as of now, rather than just complaining, make use of the lever you have already. That reach through the economic support system to your friends and relatives back at home. Engage robustly with them. Do the analysis if necessary. I have said before, Zimbabwean parents, because of the way they invested in educating their children, they look to you to advise them, to do the analysis for them and explain complex things that they may not themselves have the tools to understand. If you do that, I dare say, putting it as politely as possible, they are not getting a return on the money they use to educate you. Because I think you owe it to your parents to help them get a return on that education by helping them navigate the spaces that are easier for you to understand than for them to understand. That's why they sent you to school. So let's get it done that way. Do I believe that there will be election rigging attempts? Of course I do. I mean, this is not going to be any different. I think what ZANU set out to do was to woodwink all of us. But I think there are two things to notice here. There is an expression which says when you let the genie out of the bottle, often most of the time it's very difficult to put it back. ZANU set out to woodwink us, but I don't think they'll get that particular outcome. That's the first point. Second point is that I think that rigging an election is done in the margins. It's easier if the numbers you are dealing with are small numbers. It's more difficult to rig an election if the numbers you're dealing with are big numbers. So our responsibility as Zimbabweans and the voters is to create a situation where those numbers are big enough to cause a headache for the people who want to do the rigging. That's point number one. Point number two, we need to have our election agents do a very good job of protecting the process itself, including the counting and tallying of the votes. So let's not just try to outsource back to an organization that we know cannot be trusted. Let's take ownership of the process. Let's see how to beat them. Use numbers to beat them. Use diligence to beat them. Let's be vigilant and take responsibility for how the outcome goes. Teacher Warner asks whether Zimbabwe can ever be a country like Singapore. There is no doubt in my mind whatsoever. In fact, no, Zimbabwe can be better than Singapore. Let me tell you why. We've got resources that Singapore does not have. We've got amazing human resources. You've got an amazing climate for both tourism and agriculture. We've got natural minerals that Singapore does not have. So how can we say, can we ever be like Singapore? We've got resources that are way beyond anything that Singapore can ever dream of getting. So we can be a country much better than Singapore. It can be done. And we'll get it done. Just vote upper and you'll see. Within a couple of years, the turnaround will astound you. This is a management job. It's like a project management assignment. We can get this done. It's not difficult. Who will be in my cabinet if I win? I have said, I do not know. I don't know, because we are going to get people who want to be in that cabinet, Zimbabweans who want to participate in turning around their country to apply for jobs. If you want to field the best team in anything, sport being a very good example, you don't just go hand-picking people who are nice to you, who are your friends and so on. You choose people who've got a track record and a competence in the areas that you want to manage. That's what APA is going to do. So I do not know who is going to be in the cabinet. We'll invite willing Zimbabweans with the skills to join the cabinet, a small and tight cabinet. People in ZANU, people in MDC, people in no party at all, people in the diaspora, all of them will be welcome to offer their services to their country, and the process will be transparent. There will be a panel for interviewing these people, so that you cannot say, oh, Nkosana turned around and just picked your friends. I'm not going to do that. We have to start right in order to get our country to work. Jonah is asking me how it was to have a man of my stature go door to door. I'm not quite sure what the question means, but Jonah, what I can tell you is that this exercise turned out to be more beneficial to me than I'd realized at the beginning. I have to confess that I thought I knew my country. I thought I knew our people. But actually the exercise of traveling right through the country and engaging with people in their environment without calling them to a big meeting allowed me to come face to face with the reality and the damage that has happened in our country. Damage at both the physical level in terms of infrastructure, but more worrisomely for me, damage in terms of the social fabric of our society. So now I've got an even better understanding of the job that needs to be done in helping rehabilitate not just the physical infrastructure, but also to rehabilitate our damaged personality as a people. But again, I'll tell you right now, it's doable and it can be done. What is clear though, is that in addition to me having a fairly clear view of what needs to be done, I also am very clear that getting Zimbabwe to work requires us more than people imagine, getting a buy-in of Zimbabweans, firstly understanding what it is that needs to be done. So my role as a leader is, in addition to having a view on what needs to be done, I have to be able to articulate it to Zimbabweans and get them to commit to getting it done, because we have to do it together. And again, whilst I'm on this point, let me tell you that in my opinion, yes, of course, I don't want to come across as saying Zimbabwe does not need development partner assistance. But most of the things we need, we have got in this country. We've got the people, provided they believe in what we say we should do and understand how to go about doing it and are involved in doing it. We've got the resources, provided we stop stealing from ourselves and from our nation. We've got the resources also, provided we start being clear about sequencing and prioritization and reducing consumptive expenditure and diverting it into investment in human development and infrastructure to make sure that the economy can then grow on that platform. We can get this done. But yes, we'll need accommodation to the extent that we can get it. But what I can tell you, my opinion is that with or without international cooperation, we can get this country to work, and work quite well actually, if we are led by people who are not going to steal from us. Gary, if Mnangagwa wins, it means Zimbabweans will have chosen Mnangagwa and his program. And I think therefore it would be the expected thing that Mnangagwa should deliver to the people the promises he made, and show that the people, the trust that people put in him was justified. I don't think it's for me to then interfere with that process. I have got a very different approach to his own approach. I've told you, for instance, that when he went to Davos, I would not have gone to Davos. I would have started rebuilding my country from inside, because I don't believe that it is sanctions that killed Zimbabwe. I believe that it is corruption and nepotism and the inability to introspect properly that killed this country. Clearly, if he believed in the same things, he would have produced a manifesto which talked to those things. He didn't. If Zimbabweans then logically go and choose him and choose the manifesto program he proposed to them, I don't think it's in my place to go and interfere with that project. I think he should then deliver to the people who will have elected him. Sonke Sender says, what exactly do you not like in other parties? Which other parties? I mean, if we start with the incumbent, the sitting government, ZANU, I hope, Sonke, you understand, we've got 38 years of evidence of the incapability of this party. I hope you don't want me to say any more than that. Then, as far as MDC are concerned, because I would like to talk just about the two big parties. MDC were in a government of national unity. And a lot of the things that MDC complains about today are things they could have changed during that time, and they chose not to. So again, I keep telling people, all of us are going to be making you lots of promises. Those promises are only worth anything on the paper they are written on, provided they tally, they dovetail, they make sense in the context of the track record of either the individual or the party involved. So you must always marry the program that you are being promised, the manifesto you are being promised, with where the individuals and the party have come from. Are there deeds in the past, or what we normally call track record? Does the track record support the promises? Does it say to you the things that they are promising are things they can do because they've done similar things before? If you see a huge divergence between the two, then I would say to you, you need to be cautious about believing that they can deliver. Mark, you ask how we can assure that our leaders engage in continuous professional development. You can't assure that. If you're a leader, it's your responsibility to develop yourself. But as a government, we will put facilities in place. But you, as they say, you can take a horse to the river, but you can't force it to drink. So ultimately, it is the responsibility of the individual, when the facilities are in place, to invest in continuous self-development. Gladys, do you see yourself becoming the next president, to be honest? You know, Gladys, please send your number to either Tinashe or Nyaradzo. I want you to be one of the first people I meet when I'm inaugurated, because I'm absolutely confident that I'm the next president of this country, with your help, of course. Sean, you ask whether if I got 49%, who I would invite. Firstly, our process says if there is no winner in the first round, then all the other contestants are going to be eliminated, and only two will then move on. The top two will then move on to a second round. I actually think that the second round will be decisive. So I think your question about an alliance in forming a government actually will not arise. But remember that what APA has said is the following. We as APA are going to form a government for this country that takes resources, human resources, from wherever we can get them, of Zimbabweans who are competent, including from other parties. And by definition, therefore, what we're saying, there is nobody who will be excluded because they belong to any particular party. But what I'm not prepared to do, and thanks for asking this question, personally, Call it naivety if you like, but this is where I stand. I will not do a deal with party leaders, because doing a deal with party leaders makes a very basic assumption which is not justified. Party leaders do not own the people of this country. I want my mandate to come from the people directly. So no deals with party leaders. When you do deals with party leaders, where you end up is that they want to be given jobs even when they are incompetent. I'm not doing that. I want my mandate to come from the population of this country so that I can have the freedom to construct my administration the way I believe. So that's where I stand. That's why up to today is not in an alliance. We want our mandate from you, the people. We want you to choose your chief executive and then let the chief executive assemble the executive team. That's the way we want to go. Chiedza, I mean, I answer this question, but I know that some people will be mischievous and try to distort what I say. Chiedza's question is, in the event of a runoff between ZANU and MDC, who would you vote for? I've answered this question. Ruveneko asked me this question a couple of weeks ago and I answered it. If you are being logical, given where our country is, our country has been, so the judgment of who to vote for is based on two things. As we are at the moment, it's based firstly on the factual, historical events which have led us where we are. ZANU has destroyed our country. So that is not disputable. So for me, actually, these elections are a choice from amongst the new parties, the opposition parties. If Zimbabweans are logical, ZANU should not even have a look into these elections. They destroyed our country. They should not be given another chance to continue messing around. The second, though, is then amongst these people who are new, who've never run Zimbabwe. That's where you have to look very carefully in terms of what is the job that needs to be done? Who is competent on the basis of track record to get that job done? But the question, the direct question you ask, on the basis of historical fact, I would have to say all rational Zimbabweans, if in fact the runoff became a question of choice between ZANU and MDC, rational Zimbabweans should choose MDC. But that's not an endorsement for MDC. But I'm answering the question the way you formatted it, okay? I'm not endorsing MDC. I don't think that MDC have got the capacity to really run our country the way it should be run. That's why I'm running separately. Tapua, you've asked the same question about me being part of some alliance. I have said I offered myself to Zimbabweans. APA wrote a manifesto which Zimbabweans liked. If Zimbabweans see it fit to go and vote for MDC instead, I think that MDC should deliver because the people have chosen that option. That is what democracy is about. So you shouldn't try to fudge the issue and then say, they didn't vote for you, but go and help somebody else deliver. Deliver which agenda? There is an MDC agenda which is different from ours. That's why our manifestos are different. So once you choose MDC and their manifesto and their leadership, that's what you want. And therefore, we wait for the next 5 years to see what they do before we come back to the electorate and say, listen, we are still around. Have you changed your minds or not? And of course, that will depend on what they will have done in the meantime. Personally, if I were confident that they will do a good job, I would be with them now. I would have joined MDC. I didn't join MDC because I am convinced that what this country needs does not exist in MDC. Farai is not that if APA lose, it will surely lose. Well, Farai, you are right. You've got a right to your own opinion, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's a democracy. So that's what this exercise is about. You've got an opinion, you've got people you support, parties you support, like all other Zimbabweans. Let's see what happens on Monday. In Shona, they say usayera nyoka negabi iyo iripo. In other words, don't speculate and use different ways of measuring something that is physically present. The elections are around the corner. The election results will tell us where we stand exactly. Washington, you ask whether I've got any thoughts on what people should expect if they don't vote for APA. In other words, if APA does not win. I think more of the same, if not worse. Because like I told you, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a track record in front of us of 38 years of mismanagement. I have to say I come from a culture of the private sector where it is just inconceivable that you can have a management team destroy a company and then you go back and expect that that management team will have the capacity to turn it around. They would not have destroyed it in the first place if they were capable of turning it around. They would have managed it properly. Then MDC and the other parties, it is my opinion, on the basis of what a very structured exercise, the job we need done. And I'm not making, by the way, aspersions about the people in these parties. All I'm saying is fit for purpose. What is the job? If it were a different job, if we wanted, for instance, a country that should go and write a constitution, I would not be the person to lead it. A lawyer probably would have the competence and be better qualified to lead that exercise. Turning around our economy is the job that needs to be done, and all of the candidates who've offered themselves, I think, for me, we are the best bet for this country. So if you choose anybody else, I would say the outcome is going to be more of the same or worse. We should be moving close. I'm going to give myself less than 10 minutes for closing, so let me take a few more questions. Wutolezwe is claiming, it's a claim, that our plan is good, but we don't have the numbers on the ground. I don't think you know that, Wuto. I've talked to you about the concept of a silent majority. I think you will be surprised when the results come through for these elections. There are a lot of Zimbabweans who've suffered long enough and they know absolutely what they want and what they do not want. They are going to turn up and express their views and make their voice be understood. And you'll see that actually we do have the numbers. Nox Sibanda is saying you don't have a party majority. I do not know what that's got to do with anything, but let me explain it anyway. I have said to Zimbabweans, and I hope you understand this, if from 1980 we as Zimbabweans had contrived to have the president come from one party and the parliamentary majority belong to another party, our country today would not have been messed up as much as it has. So if there is any lesson to extract from that, is that actually we are better served having a president who does not have a parliamentary majority. Because all that happens is that when you've got a president who is the same person who promotes people from parliament into ministerial positions and the like, these people have got no capacity, because the evidence is there, of making sure that the executive is held to account. They've never done it. They are not going to start now. So the best arrangement for us, I dare say, not just Zimbabwe, but most of African countries, is to have a president who does not control parliament. And that way you'll have checks and balances which make our countries do much, much better in terms of understanding good governance. And if the president does the wrong thing, the president must know that they cannot get away with it. That's what we want to see. And that's why, for me, not having a parliamentary majority is not a disadvantage. It's a good thing, so that we run our country properly for Zimbabweans, not for a political party. maybe that's the last thing the comment I should make. Everywhere in Africa, we have seen that when political parties win elections, they proceed to run the country for the party. We will never succeed until we get somebody who understands that you need to run the country for the people, not for the party. So unless you're missing something, you don't understand this and you can't see it, we'll continue to have a problem for as long as you want an alignment between the president and the party that they belong to having a parliamentary majority. They will continue to run the country for their party, and they do their favors and their friends favors in giving them jobs inappropriately. So let's change this. Let's have a president, vote for the right president, and individually give up about worrying about parties. Vote for the right president, and individually in each one of your constituencies, vote for the right parliamentarian, and in your wards, vote for the right person to serve at council level. Once we start, that's what meritocracy should be telling us. The truth is, if you look at most of our political parties on the continent, point me to a country where you can actually very definitively say the ideological differences are clear and these are they are. We tend to vote on tribal lines, on club lines, and there is no substantive difference in terms of what we believe in. So you might as well migrate and go to meritocracy, vote for the right people rather than for clubs called parties. That's not done us any favors. So that's the way we should do it. So to close, I just want to repeat, we have got a unique opportunity, in my opinion, to get the correct fit, define what the job is, and look at the candidates and choose the right person to run our country at this point in time. We are not at war. We don't need soldiers running this country. We are not fighting a war. So let's choose the right person for the job. The job we have to do at this point in time is to get our economy to work, is to get our nation united, is to get peace in our country, to make our country prosperous, and get our country to be respected again globally. So we need somebody who will interact and understand domestic issues and absolutely get on top of them, but understand also that getting Zimbabwe to work is going to take Zimbabweans collectively to work, to agree a plan, agree prioritization, and then deploy the resources we have, our own resources in the first instance, manage those properly, and then if other people choose to come and work with us, by all means we welcome them. But our starting point is, let us manage our own resources diligently, prudently, and in a manner that is as transparent as possible. And when we do that, our country cannot go wrong. We've got the people, we've got the resources. So go out there and do the right thing. If you can't go out there personally, use your indirect influence with your networks. Talk to your relatives, talk to your friends, and make sure they understand the issues and make them, or not make them, persuade them to go and do the right thing. I can assure you, we can get our country to be an example of what both democracy and good management look like. Thank you very much and good evening.